Alrighty. So we're recording, and what I thought I'd do today, because we're all quarantined and stuck inside, a lot of people are probably trying to start up YouTube channels, because what the hell else are you going to do on terminal unemployment? So I thought I would talk a little bit about how I do mine. I feel like I'm uniquely qualified to do this because I'm not actually that good at it, and neither probably are you. I have a lot more stuff now than I used to when I started out. Had a cell phone, a little microphone that went into that, and then eventually I got this little light. This little newer, the N160, like 25 bucks. Has a shoe mount so you can stick it on top of your camera. That's pretty cool. Or just some other tripod, which is what I usually ended up doing. If you look at my old videos, you can see that exact setup in action. And you know what? It's really not bad. Once again, I'm Alex Grimm, and welcome to my internet. Eventually I got a T5i, which is a much more competent video camera than my old Droid Mini. Not that there's anything wrong with the Mini. A theme in my life, and probably many, is, use the tools you have to the best of your ability. You will find that your ability matters a lot more than the tools. Right, start out with this little light and a bunch of lamps. I'd stick it like over here somewhere, light up like one side of my face, then have like a lamp, and a lamp, and a lamp, and I actually kind of like the look it got. It took a little bit of work in Premiere. I just have Premiere Elements, which is like 80 bucks. The color balance would never ever be right. The focus would usually be wrong. It'd be better on the cell phone, kind of ironically, because cell phones have pretty, one, deep depth of field, and two, usually have decent autofocus. The T5i had terrible video audio focus, so if you really wanted to do video, you stuck the camera up on a tripod, set your focus, and then tried not to move very much. Good morning. Big news. Alright, so right now I'm using, I'll just pull one of them down for you. They're also newer. They're from Amazon. They are not especially expensive. I want to say they're like 60 bucks, 40? I'll put it in the description. I don't know. I'm going to put links to everything, actually. But so let me show you the back panel here real quick. One of the things that drew me to this light is it has both brightness and color temperature, and it's battery powered. I don't have all the batteries. It would be like, 60 bucks to get that many batteries. But it's a really nice option to have. So you can look at the screen kind of while I turn knobs. Brightness scales reasonably. So it scales from 3200 Kelvin to 5600 Kelvin, and the way it does that, it has two colored LEDs. It has like blue ones and yellow ones. So it's actually brightest at like 40 something hundred, and then it gets a little dimmer on either side because you're pulling out the opposite color. A lot of people recommend getting just daylight balanced lights, and I actually disagree with that because every place in my house has different colored lights. If we're doing the edit in the kitchen stuff, there's a big fluorescent light.
I think that's where the fin attached.
Up here, I've got this like super yellow. I don't know why it's doing that. That's weird. I wonder if the LEDs, why there's banding. That's really neat. I've never noticed that before. That's not there in real life. There's also a window and a window. So the light's all kinds of different colors. The color scaling isn't super great, but it's not bad. You can get a good white balance anywhere without having to do anything too weird. With the other setup, because I was using all these like super orange IKEA LED bulbs, I'd have to put there's like a yellow filter on front of this, and it would just be so yellow that none of the white balance settings on the T5 wanted to get that low, so I'd have to dump it back into, when I dumped it into Premiere, I'd have to change the white balance all the way to the left to get it close, and it would always end up being like a weird kind of magenta color that I couldn't ever quite get rid of well. Yeah, so I've since upgraded to better lights and then a better camera. I got a used 80D for Christmas, which was like the coolest. So yeah, this is what only one of the lights on looks like. So it's good to have two of these if you can. You put one kind of like right in front of you, but it's not the same. So it's really nice to have two of these. So let me put this back up. Also upgraded the 80D, which is very competent both as a video and as a stills camera, and I do a lot of still photography and I like to do the video. If I was shopping for just a video camera, I would probably go mirrorless these days. If you're doing Canon, something like the M50 or the M5 or 6, they're just smaller and lighter is the big thing. You can use all the same lenses with adapters, and they have their own lenses as well. Yeah, obviously Sony and Fujifilm and everyone else makes stuff. I'm just much less familiar with their products, so don't have a recommendation there. But yeah, so here. There's the 80D on the tripod, and then let me turn this light towards it. Oh yeah, isn't that nice? 80D on the tripod. I've got the little Rode Video Mic Mini, I think it is. It's like 50 bucks. It's not bad. It's not great. It doesn't have its own preamp in it, so you're relying on the camera's preamps, and most cameras have pretty garbage preamps. So you do get a fair amount of self noise, and that's something you can address in post. I would like to get one of their nicer ones, maybe the NTG something. It's like 250 bucks. So that's an upgrade for later. The big thing to look at here is this little lens. If you are shooting Canon and you're trying to shoot videos on a tripod, I really recommend this little guy here. You can pick it up used for somewhere between 90 and 115 for it. I can't remember exactly. 24 millimeter, only works on a crop sensor, but that's fine if you only have a crop sensor, and it is f2.8 and it has the STM motor. So the STM motor is real quiet. f2.8 is pretty fast, which means you can use less insane ISO settings or more sensible shutter speed settings while you're shooting your video, and that's good. Right now I've got it to a 60th of a second shutter, 30 frames per second, 200 ISO, and that's with the lighting situation I have. Obviously, if you don't have the same kind of lighting situation, you're going to have to make compromises elsewhere, and that's fine. You can get away with a higher ISO, you can get away with a lower frame rate. So there's that, and there's a tripod. It's a Manfrotto something rather. It's one of their kind of more entry-level ones. I like it a lot. It's not too heavy. It's chubbier than like a more expensive one, but not too bad. I take it with me just about everywhere. It is a ball head, which for still photography is great, but for videography is a little annoying because when you loosen this guy here, the entire ball just flops around. So you have to adjust all of your axes kind of all at once versus a pan head. It's a little easier to separate your motions. Something to think about. You can pick up a really cheap pan tripod for like 30 bucks on Amazon. And it'll suck, but it'll be okay. It's the one I use for a long time. Link below. And then for the light stands, just Amazon Basics, dirt cheap. They're fine. I've put mono lights on them, and it's a little rickety, but it's okay. They're definitely not the best, but they're also super cheap. And for the little LED lights, they work great, especially if you're not taking them anywhere dangerous, like outside. Yeah, for indoor stuff, the cheap stuff works real well. It's more when you're like moving stuff around, you gotta get a little nervous about it. One other thing with the lights, they came with a fairly short IEC cable. I picked up a pair of like real long ones, so I can just kind of drop them anywhere in the house and it's fine. But yeah, so that is essentially the sitting here talking stuff photography works. I like the 24 millimeter lens because you get this kind of, on a crop frame sensor, 24 millimeter lens is like the wide end of normal, so it you see, you get a decent field of view, but it's not so much that it looks goofy. Wide enough that your depth of field doesn't get like too thin, even when I'm pretty close to the camera, so it's a little bit forgiving. The 80D has really good face tracking. I'm moving my head around and watching the little square like follow me very well, but having that little extra depth of field from the wider lens versus a longer one does make focus a little more forgiving. If, however, you're going for more like the just like head and shoulders, I'd actually recommend this little guy, which is the 50mm 1.8 STM. So same focus motor, so it's real quiet, real smooth, Even wider aperture, although this lens is notably soft at 1.8, so I would probably stop it down to 2.8 anyway, unless you just really like soft pictures. If you're doing like a softcore porno or something, that's probably pretty rad. But here, let's slap this guy on so you can kind of see the difference. So camera's going to be in the same spot. Right, so camera's in the exact same spot. I had to like tilt it a little bit to, you know, frame on my face better, but as you can see, same spot. I'll do like a little, this is what it looks like now. This is what it looked like before. And now this is what it looks like. But yeah, so if you're doing more like just the talking head kind of thing, similarly priced lens, I would definitely recommend the STM version because it's a lot nicer than the older. There's like a 1 and a 2 that have similar optical quality, I believe. My understanding is the STM one's a little nicer optically, the focus motor is way better, and I think the construction is just a little nicer. So good lens all around. As you can see, you get a nice tight shot if you're looking for that. If you have a lot of room, you can put it farther away and, you know, you get kind of more like the head and shoulders thing, kind of like the Adam Neely look. I think he uses a 50 on an 80D, but his space is clearly set up differently than mine. The primes I'm talking about are not stabilized, which means they're great on tripods and pretty not great if you're hand holding them because they'll just jitter around a lot. This guy, on the other hand, is stabilized, and this is the EFS 18 to 135 IS STM lens. It's not a fast lens, unfortunately. It's 3.5 to 5.6, so variable aperture, not super fast aperture. This is what I shoot all of the vintage recipe reviews on. So let's cut to that real quick.
Oh no, it still has the skeleton. Oh God, Betty!
And it looks pretty good. We've got a lot of light in the kitchen. I'm using like ISO 200 most of the time, shooting the lens as wide as possible. I'd like to get a nice 35mm prime, budget willing one day. But no, this is good for walking around, doing stuff. It's not too expensive. Used, I picked this up for just under 200 bucks. They make a new version that has a better focus motor, but it's optically, I believe, the same. It's a little more. So if you can live with the slightly slower STM versus Nano USM, definitely save the money and get the slightly older one because it still looks good. Yeah, the newer one has some features that are really geared towards video. I think it has like an actual interface where you can like do like really nice manual focus racks on it with like a motor. That's really cool. I'm not making movies at that level, so it's completely unnecessary expenditure for me and probably most of you. It is cool, so if you're into that, check it out. But yeah, for the rest of us, this little guy's great. It's not super compact, but it's not huge either. It's like, you know, it's beer can sized, like a lens should be. You know, it's a good take it places. You can do dolly zooms. Handheld dolly zoom, motherfucker. So that's a good one too, depending on what you're doing. And the other one that I would think about, which is in my living room and Edda's on like an important conference call, so I'm not going to go bother her. There is the Canon 10 to 18 stabilized STM. It's also slow. It's like 3.5 to 5.6, so it's a slow lens too, and it's got a fairly narrow zoom range. But the super wide angle is what you see when I'm doing stuff where like we're in the car or hiking or something. I'm just like holding it like over here and talking to the camera like an idiot. If someone finds this camera, we died doing what we loved, being shot wandering through the wilderness. Having the real wide lens works very well for that. You might be able to pull it off with the super wide end of 18 to 135 there. Might be a little tight for that, but it'd probably be workable. The lens I haven't mentioned yet is the kit lens that comes with half these cameras. It's the 18 to 55. You know, if that's the one you got, that's fine. It's got the newer ones have the STM motor and they're stabilized, so you can handhold them. They'll do nice quiet video focus. They're not the sharpest, obviously, and they're not super fast, so you're going to need a lot of light or a high ISO. If that's the one you got, then use it, man. It's plenty competent for just pointing at yourself and talking like an idiot, which is most of what YouTube is, really. You can point at your friends and they can talk like idiots too. Hopefully this was not entirely stupid. I didn't really know what to do. It's like a Saturday. I'm basically in my pajamas. Stay safe, kids.